All right, Glennda Baker, how are you this morning?
Living the dream, selling houses every day. What about you?
I love to hear that. We're selling them as well. Let's see. What do I have in escrow right now? 28. We just had quite a few closings. I try to always keep it above 30, but we dipped down a little bit. How has your 2021 shaped out for you?
Unprecedented year. It's been absolutely amazing. I actually kicked it off in January with the largest sale in my county. And it's been a great year.
So tell me a little bit. I know that you're an investor and you're an agent. Tell me what your career, if you could sum up what it's been like to get to this point, and then what your focus is with your agent business first.
Well, I've been selling real estate since Jesus was a baby. So like 29 years. I celebrated in September. And, I started out in September of 1992, and by December, I was agent of the month. So as an agent, I've always, kind of had a consistent business. In 2013, I was selling like 30, 35, 38 houses a year. Really was just contemplating like if I was going to be a fading winner or if I was going to like really step up. And so I reevaluated my business, and in 2014 sold 68 houses. And then last year did 149. And so, it's the best year of my career. Our sales price has gone up. I run an all-female team here in Atlanta. Elizabeth's been with me 21 years and Evelyn's been with me 6. So there's 3 agents that sell. And then we have a pretty robust back end where we have someone who handles listings, someone who handles transactions. And then I actually have a gifting concierge. I do a lot of gifting. And so Andrea helps me execute on that.
Awesome. So you've got a team. I was going to say no one sells 149 houses by themselves.
No, I have a team. It's an all-female team here in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's amazing. We're lean, mean.
So you're not only an agent, you're also an investor. Can you tell me a little bit about the type of properties that you buy?
So I buy, fix up, and sell. And, that's kind of where my creative genes come out because I can see the vision and I love pulling it together and then giving somebody else the opportunity of, home ownership. But recently, my favorite thing, and my favorite thing has always been grandma's house. I love to purchase original homeowner or grandma's house, 1950s, 1960s, all brick ranches, typically 13 to 1700 square feet. That's really like my favorite thing to buy. And now I have been turning those into Airbnbs, short-term rentals. And I have really found a lot of success in that. Number one, for my clients who are in between selling their home and can't find the next one, I can put them in one of my Airbnbs. And then also I have an Airbnb close to the Brave Stadium. That has really done well because families typically come to the baseball game and they like to stay in a house, not in a hotel. So it works out really well. So I kind of found a little niche there that I love.
I love what you just said about when you have a person selling their house, buying another one, you can put them in one of your short-term rentals. I love that idea. Like, what can I do over here that also helps my business here so that they both win? Can you think of anything else off the top of your head where you've been able to incorporate some of those synergistic components?
So David, no charge for that tip right there. But I also have a moving van and moving boxes. So that's been something that's really kind of helped my business as well. I have a full-time stager. And so anything that we can do to take a pain point out of the transaction for the client, it's not real estate 1992 where you put a sign in a lockbox and put it in the MLS. Today, real estate agents are getting valued by skill. And I honestly think that it's going to go the way of a doctor. It's going to go the way of a lawyer. The ones that are super skilled are the ones who are going to be the most valuable and get paid the most. And the others will literally be relegated to the garden club.
Let me move on to a real estate nightmare story. Tell me about one of the worst stories that you've come across in your career.
Probably the worst story is when I sold the wrong house. I definitely used a real estate life on that one. I had shown this guy 2 houses on West Paces Ferry. Now, West Paces Ferry, that's the fanciest street in Atlanta. So that's where the governor's mansion is. And so I show him 2 houses on that street. And then I showed him 2 or 3 other houses. And he says, at the end of the day, he's like, okay, I want to make an offer on the house on West Paces Ferry. And I'm like, okay, awesome sauce.
I see where this is going.
So I write the contract. And he signs off on it. He's going to tear it down. He's going to build his dream home. He doesn't do an inspection. We don't do a walkthrough, for God's sakes. The guy's going to tear the house down. So it doesn't really matter, right? So he calls me Sunday night and he's like, hey, Glennda, he's like, people are still living in that house. And I'm like, nobody's living in that house. And he's like, no, I drove by and there's people living in the house. I'm like, oh, my stars and stripes. So let me call the agent. I call the agent. I'm like, hey, Patty, it's Glennda. Like, is somebody living in the house? She's like, no, nobody's living in the house. I said, well, my guy went by and he said he thought somebody was living in the house. No. So sure enough, we go to closing Monday morning, and I had driven him to closing because, I mean, keep in mind, this is back a long time ago where, you know, you drove the folks. And so I drive him to closing. And in Atlanta, unlike y'all, we all go to closing together. So but the seller had signed early. So we go to closing, finish closing, and I go up Habersham, and he goes, where are you going? The house is to the left. I said, well, the house is to the right. He goes, Glennda, the house is to the left. And I'm like, okay, yeah, right. So I get in the left lane and I turn left, and I'm driving down West Paces Ferry, and I see the for sale sign, and my heart stops. And he looks over, he goes, see, there's people there. And I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Like, I go to real estate jail for this. Like, this is terrible. I flip around at the History Center and I head back down West Paces Ferry Road, and I pull into that driveway and I jump out of that car and I said, this is the house you bought. And he's like, what? And there was this little knee wall around the front driveway, and he's sitting there and he's got his hands in his head in his hands. And he's like, did you sell me the wrong house? I'm like, the wrong house? Are you saying this is the right? I mean, think about it. Like, this is fabulous. You can put the garage over here. It's an acre. You got a great deal. Here's the pool. Like, I can see it now. Like, this is going to be beautiful the way you drive up to it. Why would you want to live by the History Center? That's like the worst part of West Paces Ferry. There's too much traffic. You wouldn't want to live out there. And that lot was so small. And this is an acre. And he looks around. He's like, well, I guess you're probably right. It's a larger lot. And no lie, I get this. So I get him back in the car. I get him back to his office. I literally pull out of his office parking lot and I pull into this other office parking lot, and I'm physically ill. And I'm like, oh my God, I am going to die right now. I mean, it was so crazy. It was so bad. And the agent, you know, a few people hear about the story because I had told my broker, you know, this happened. And the listing agent hears about it. And she goes, Glennda, she goes, I'm just going to take you to lunch so you can tell me the story of how you sold in the wrong house. I said, honey, you'd need to take me to lunch in Europe to get that out of me. So, yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So do you have like a fail safe now where you have someone else review the contract just to make sure that your buyer's agent, because if there are two houses that are on the same street, it's very easy to see how that can happen. And with a high profile client like me, I'm not going to go drive and look at a house once I've decided to buy it. I let other people do it and they send me the videos, basically the same way that I buy houses out of state is what I do even when they're in state. So what have you adjusted to make sure that doesn't happen again?
We make the buyer sign the listing sheet.
There you go. That's a smart idea.
So it has a picture of the house. It has the address just to make sure. But I will tell you, I literally almost had a nervous breakdown on that one. It was crazy. But that guy bought.
Oh, I can imagine your heart would just fall into the pit of your stomach.
He bought more houses from me though. And that's his favorite Glennda story. He tells that story all the time.
Every team needs a leader. Really, just every business needs a leader. Every organization needs a leader. In his book, Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink talks a lot about how everything rises and falls with the leader. So as you develop new opportunities, new enterprises, if you're not going to be the leader, you got to have a leader in that organization to give that direction to everybody. Any advice that you can leave with when it comes to what to look for in a leader?
The road is paved with dead squirrels that fail to make a decision. Don't be roadkill.
I love that one. I said that on someone else's podcast. I think it was like the A Game podcast with Nick LaMagna, and he actually made a meme of like a squirrel in the middle of a road with a scared look on his face and posted it. That's very, very good. Be decisive. I love it. I love that you started young because you were able to get so much experience and still be relatively young yourself and crushing it. So If you're looking for an agent, please take some of the advice that Glennda and I talked about right now for how to identify. If you are an agent, Glennda would be a great person to look to model your business after. I know, just speaking to you, Glennda, you definitely carry yourself like a decisive person who's confident and knows the game and makes good decisions. And that's what in the next book I'm writing, we talk about top producer characteristics, and those are all right there in that category. So it was great to meet you, and thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. If you're listening, please subscribe to BiggerPockets YouTube. Find Glennda, where are you on Instagram? How can people find you?
At Glennda Baker. And remember, it's 2 N's. GLENNDABAKER.
Glennda Baker with 2 N's. And I am David Greene 24. Thank you very much.